We are back, Blue Collar Nation, and we appreciate you guys tuning in today. We have been gone for a week now, as it was spring break down here at Boise State University, but we are back. We are Blue Collar Sports. That is what you're listening to right now. We like to talk all sorts of national sports talk. It all happens right here. I'm your co-host, Seth Newville, joined here with co-host Trevor Brenlin. We got a lot of talk about to go on, that's been going on that we've missed lately. Obviously, March Madness, NBA, MLB's right around the corner. Big-time NFL news coming in as well. There's a lot to talk about, but we appreciate you guys tuning in today. This is our 108th show ever of Blue Collar Sports down here at Boise State University. We're in the Pulse Radio studio right now, and we're ready to get after it.
Yeah, I'm ready to get to it. It's been much more time off than we have hoped. Spring break was good. Did you have fun, Seth?
I did. Worked a little bit. Didn't really do a whole lot. Didn't take a big trip or anything. I know we got a trip coming up right around the corner once the NBA playoffs start. We'll be heading down to Utah for that. So kind of save my money for that, but nice to relax a little bit and not have to worry about school, that's for sure.
Absolutely. It's a great break, but I'm ready to get back to a lot of sports stuff we missed. NBA, college basketball, like you said, March Madness is going on, some NFL news, so we got a lot to cover today, and I can't wait to get back to it.
And we are going to start off in the NBA, kind of give a wrap of everything we missed. The playoffs are now about 2 weeks away, I believe, two and a half weeks. It's coming down to the wire, and there is still a lot to be decided within the standings. We're going to talk a lot about our predictions and what we want to see happen later on in segment number 3 today. But kind of an overview of it right now, the way it's shaped out. The East is there's more certainty in the East than there is in the West, that's for sure. Milwaukee is surprisingly kind of ran away with the 1 seed. They're sitting at 4 games ahead of Toronto right now, looking like they're going to clinch their conference and be the number 1 seed, which is big time, big home court advantage. If you remember Milwaukee last year, their series with Boston in round 1, when everyone thought Boston was done, and the news Kyrie was going to be out for the playoffs, Boston beat them in 7. But every single game that series was won by the home team. Mm-hmm. Boston won in 7, and every single one went 2-2, 1-1-1, 1, and Boston was able to escape. So having home court advantage for Milwaukee is huge because you're looking at the second round right now. Most likely they're going to get Boston again, so that's definitely something to pay attention to. I think they wanted that home court advantage. But Toronto's sitting at the 2 spot comfortably. They're 4 games ahead of the 3rd seed, the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 2 games ahead of Indiana at 4. Indiana's 2 games ahead of Boston, who's at 5, and then everyone else after that is kind of a little tighter. The Pistons have the 6th spot, tied with the Brooklyn Nets, but they do own the tiebreaker, so the Pistons have the 6th seed right now. Miami's a game behind them, sitting back at 8, but they're only half a game ahead of the Magic, who got a big win last night against the Sixers. Mm-hmm. So the Magic are still in it, and the Hornets are just 2 games back as well. So definitely at the bottom of the East, there's some shakeup.
Yeah, the East, like you said, a little bit more solidified than what the West is. We'll cover that in a little bit, but I like what I see at the top. It's interesting to see the Milwaukee Bucks pull away with the 1 seed. They're having a heck of a year. I think Giannis definitely is in the MVP conversation. Either number 1 or number 2, I think, along with James Harden.
That's right, one of the questions I'm going to ask you here in a minute.
We'll get to that. And then the Raptors, I still like the Raptors, probably a little bit more than the Bucks. They got a little bit more experience. They're sitting at number 2. And then the Sixers, I know you're not big on them. Are they winning you at all?
No, actually, I'm going to say I will say Joel Embiid's winning me over. We're going to have more on that. We're going to have more on that next segment. I'll talk more about Joel Embiid.
Okay.
But the Sixers as a whole. And I was listening, we were watching First Take this morning, and I was listening to Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Talk about it as well, talk about Ben Simmons, and I don't like this Sixers team because of Ben Simmons. I mean, I'll say that. And I think the regular season you can get away with it. They'll get away with having your ball-dominant player. Ben Simmons dominates the ball for the Sixers. He's the point guard. He creates everything. You could get away in the regular season with having him not being able to shoot because the game is much more fast-paced in the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, when everyone's getting back on defense, the game slows way down. That's why we've seen James Harden's points in the playoffs in years past go way down because the game slows down. It's more half-court-based offense. And it's going to be tough for guys like Jimmy Butler, guys like Tobias Harris to get going because whoever's guarding Ben Simmons could basically hedge over on their side and take away shots from them because they don't have to worry about Ben Simmons shooting the ball. And so that's why I think the Sixers are going to struggle in the playoffs. I think they'll win their first series, whether they play Brooklyn, Detroit, Miami, whoever they play round 1. I think they'll win that series. But in a matchup with Toronto, I think I'd take Toronto in 5 or 6.
I think that matchup with Toronto, I think will be fantastic. I think the winner of that series might end up in the NBA Finals. I believe that. But I'm a little bit more on the Sixers than you are. I do believe this team runs through Ben Simmons. We saw them play the Magic last night. No Ben Simmons, and they got destroyed by Orlando. That wasn't a good sight to see. But I think this team, I think Ben Simmons is going to take a big step improvement in this upcoming playoffs. He's going to prove that this team needs him to win, and I believe he can do that if they play collective. Good basketball. I think they could beat anybody in the Eastern Conference, and I do believe Sixers have a nice shot to the NBA Finals. But like you said, the Raptors matchup will be one of the best series, I think, in the playoffs overall.
That would be super entertaining. And I wanted to ask you, because I saw a report come out this morning that the Raptors are increasingly confident that Kawhi Leonard will re-sign with Toronto.
Yeah.
We have not heard a lot about it. Obviously, Kawhi's a very quiet guy, so we'll see what happens in the offseason. But do you expect him to re-sign in Toronto?
With Kawhi Leonard, you probably don't ever know. No one knew he wanted out of San Antonio, so you don't really know. But I would put Toronto as the favorites. It doesn't look like he's ever having a great time, but I do believe he's staying quiet up in Canada. No one's really watching him, but they're being productive. They're the number 2 seed in the East. They're still a good team. He's come out with his new shoes with New Balance. They don't look that great, but he's having Toronto Raptors.
They look like how I expect Kawhi Leonard shoes to look.
They look like Toronto Raptors version of shoes, and I think he really enjoys what they're doing. And I think he will likely re-sign with Toronto. If not, I think there's 2 teams in LA that would be a close second and third.
I think Toronto, I'd say, is by far the favorite. I do think the Clippers still have a good shot, though. I don't see the Lakers. I don't think Kawhi Leonard, if he wants to go LA, I think he still wants to be the guy wherever he goes. I think that he's the guy right now in Toronto, and I think he's really enjoying that. Because he was never really that in San Antonio. He might have been their best player, but, I mean, obviously when you're playing with the legends of Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan, you're never going to be the guy. And so I think he wanted that. That was part of the reason he wanted out. And he has that in Toronto. So if you're to leave, I think you'd go somewhere where he also wants that. Okay. Somewhere like the Clippers, not the Lakers.
I can see that
too. They have another guy there. But
sure
the rest of the East, I want to talk about 4-5 matchup. It looks like it's going to be Pacers-Celtics.
Yeah.
I keep expecting the Celtics to jump them. They still have not. They're 2 games back of Indiana. Would you give Indiana any shot to upset Boston?
Absolutely, give them a shot. Celtics still haven't won me over. I thought they were. They haven't really turned it on just yet. Hopefully they can in the playoffs, but it might be a little too late. Pacers play great basketball. They play team. They play defense, and we saw them give Cleveland the shake-up last year, going to 7 against LeBron. I think even without Victor Oladipo, they could do the same similar thing to Boston because this Celtics team is a little dysfunctional. We haven't seen them all click together, so I think absolutely Pacers have a shot, but I would take the Celtics to win the series.
I think that could be a much closer series than people expect. Looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 outside the East right now, like I said, Pistons, Nets, Miami, Orlando, Charlotte, all within 3 games of each other and only 3 spots available. Who are your favorite teams out of this group?
The Nets actually have been playing nice basketball. I like seeing them play well. D'Angelo Russell has been playing very well. I could see them moving up to the 6 with the Pistons. Probably both of those teams. I like the Pistons. Blake Griffin, like we talked about, having a heck of a year. No one's talking about him up in Detroit. Those 2 teams are nice. They're not going to win their first round, I don't believe, unless they play the Pacers somehow. But I think the Pistons, Nets, and then the Heat will be the 8 seed. The Magic are close, but I don't see them getting in.
Want to see Dwayne Wade play another one.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Magic, they've surprised me this year, how they've been able to stick around. I think they got a good future, good young core there. And I think it all depends on Markelle Fultz, and if he comes back, we'll see what he does in Orlando next year. But I think I do like Detroit, and I saw Detroit is the only team Toronto has not beaten this year. Detroit is 4-0 against Toronto, and it's interesting. And then when I thought about it, it kind of makes sense because when I watch Toronto, they're an old school kind of team. Not based around shooting, they're based around defending and finishing at the rim with guys like Kawhi Leonard, Serge Ibaka, Pascal Siakam, Marc Gasol. Everything's at the rim. But Detroit, they're also an old school kind of team, and they defend the rim really well with Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin. They're one of the best defensively sound teams at the rim. So I think Detroit, they need to steer clear or Toronto, they need to steer clear of Detroit. I do still think they'd beat them, but I think it'd be a lot closer than some people expect.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that happening. Pistons are up and rise team. I think they just need that one other backcourt player that could take them to a new level. And I think Pistons are on the right track, and I like the trade that they did for Blake Griffin. I think is finally working out for them.
Looking at the Western Conference now, there's a lot to be determined still in the West. It's pretty much guaranteed who the 8 teams are going to be now.
Yep.
The 9th seed is the Kings, but they are 7 games back. Every team has been eliminated except for the Kings, but I think they're a couple days away from being eliminated from playoff race as well. We'll have more on that in a sec on teams that got eliminated. But looking at the West right now, the Warriors still sit at top, but they're only a half game ahead of Denver. And then Houston's sitting at the 3 spot. They're a half game ahead of Portland, who's at 4. We're going to have more on Portland later on. Utah climbs into 5 now, but they have the same record. They are tied with the Los Angeles Clippers at 6. Spurs are at 7, tied with the Thunder, who are at 8. All those teams from 3 to 8 are within 4 games of each other. It's going to be tough to kind of predict what to see here. But who do you like the most coming out of the West?
Yeah, it's a jumbled mess from 5 to 8. It's absolutely crazy. I do believe Warriors will get the 1 seed with the Nuggets at number 2. Rockets should get the number 3 seed. Yeah. And I do believe the Blazers, which we're going to touch on them in a little bit with Nurkic going down, I do believe they will still get the 4 seed. But that means the number 5 seed is the seed you want to get right now. That's what all these teams are going to want to get. I believe will be either the Jazz or the Thunder getting the number 5 seed. Because if you can play the Blazers round 1, which they got swept last year, they always have tough matchups round 1. That's what you want because you don't want to play these teams like the Rockets, Nuggets, and Warriors round 1. So you want to stay clear away from the 8th seed, absolutely. That's what the Thunder are sitting at right now. They need to move up because if they play Warriors round 1, I know it'll be a great series, but that should be the Western Conference Finals, not round 1.
Yeah, I think the Warriors are probably not liking that very much, seeing that they'd have to play the Thunder round 1. And as you said, well, I want to talk about the Thunder because they were. I remember a couple weeks ago we were talking on the show about them possibly being a 2 seed. They were looking like they were going to run away with it. I talked a little bit about it on our show before we go. I think it's for Russell Westbrook to blame. I know Colin Coward actually all his shows to blame, but what's going wrong with the Thunder? They're struggling mightily. They're 4-6 in their last 10 games. They've slipped all the way down to the 8th seed, which, like you just said, steer clear of the Warriors round 1. What is their issue?
Yeah, I don't want to blame it on one player, but Russell Westbrook is kind of going back to Russell Westbrook things, kind of trying to take over games too much, being a little reckless. And we saw him flip a switch. We saw him be the second-tier player to Paul George. So I know he could do that again, but he needs to know to do that in the playoffs. And Paul George, he's still playing well. He's not playing MVP like Paul George, he was in the beginning of the year. So maybe a little bit of that too. But when it comes down to playoffs, these guys are going to have to step up their game. And if they're able to play like the Thunder team the first half of this year, they could beat almost anybody in the West. I believe that. So I think the Thunder can click it once the playoffs start, but they need to do it before so they don't get the 8th seed.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come down to Russell Westbrook. I'll more on that. I'm going to talk about him next segment. But before we go, we got a couple minutes here before break number 1. But I want to go back to the MVP question. It seems like it's kind of come down between 2 players. Paul George, like I said, kind of slipped out of it. Nikola Jokic's up there, but he's not quite at the top. I think right now, and they play each other tonight, by the way. Going to be a good game on TNT. But they play tonight. James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah. Who's your MVP right now?
Yeah, those are the 2 absolutely picks. I think it will come down to either one. I would probably vote for James Harden to win, but I believe Giannis Antetokounmpo will win it.
Really?
I believe Giannis will win it. He's a James won it last year, which is great, but Giannis is a foreign player. He's kind of had the biggest jump out of anybody this year. The Bucks had the number 1 overall seed this season. Yeah. I think it's Giannis's year to get the MVP. I would vote for James Harden because I think he means a lot to that team and what they're doing, but I think Giannis will win it for the Bucks.
Yeah, it's funny. Funny you said because I was actually going to say the opposite. I would vote for Giannis, but I do think James Harden's going to win it. James Harden, though, it is crazy. I saw a stat yesterday that James Harden, if you just take his first 3 quarters scoring, if you take quarters 1, 2, and 3, and his points per game, he's averaging 28.1 points per game in those 3 quarters. He'd be the second in the NBA right now, just behind Paul George by 0.1 points per game in scoring. He's putting up remarkable numbers, but I would still go Giannis because what the biggest knock I had on Giannis last couple of years was he hasn't figured out how to make other players better around him.
True.
That's what LeBron's always been really good at. Mark that moment. I'll rarely give him a compliment. But making other players better around you. And Giannis, I think, took that step this year. I think he elevated everyone's game, and he became a leader. And his stats, of course, are ridiculous as well. So I think I would vote for Giannis, but I do think it's going to be a very, very close finish.
I think it will be a lot closer than it has in years past. will be very close. I know Westbrook is still trying to go for a triple-double, it looks like. Maybe that's why the Thunder are kind of going down, because he's trying to get that triple-double 3 years in a row.
Stats don't matter.
But I do believe it will be either Giannis or James Harden, and you can't go wrong with either one. I think both of them deserve it.
Devin Booker, before we go off, I want to touch on Devin Booker. He scores 59 last night. But interesting end of the game where the Jazz intentionally fouled his teammates so that he did not have a chance to go for 60 points while the Jazz were up by 30. What are your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts on Devin Booker?
Yeah, I don't like it. I would have, you're already up by a lot, the Jazz are. Why limit a guy from getting 60 by fouling someone else? I don't like that. I would have let Devin Booker go for 60. It's cool to see. Suns are a struggling team. They need as much confidence as they could get. But Devin Booker I like a lot. He's a nice player, one of the better shooters. He's not Kobe Bryant, but he mirrors his game a lot, which is very cool. I think he's one of the best non-All-Star players right now. I've heard some takes like that. But his team around him is not that good. I want him to stay in Phoenix because I want the Suns to be a good team. They need some young talent. I know Zion Williamson's a nice player coming out of college.
And a young point guard.
They could definitely use a talent like him to upgrade this team. But Devin Booker, I know a lot of people are saying get out of Phoenix, but I want him to stay and make Phoenix a great team.
Yeah, I do want him to stay too. There's a point guard I'm going to talk about a little bit later on today that I really like coming out.
Yep.
I think would be a perfect fit for Phoenix. But it was interesting to see Quinn Snyder, and I watched the ending of this game because I love watching Utah, and it was an interesting message because obviously, I like the perspective of you never let anyone score 60 on you, but you already let the dude score 59, and at that point, I almost would, if I was Quinn Snyder, I would have almost wanted to see him score 60 just so I could chew my team out more. I know they won that game. I know they won by 30 plus or whatever, however much they won by. They won by a lot. But Quinn Snyder did not look happy at the end of the game, and so I thought he would have tried to punish his team by letting Devin Booker score 60. Yeah. I'm sure it was still got an earful in the locker room. But still a great game. James Harden also scored 61 the other night, so there's been some big-time performances lately. NBA is getting good.
Absolutely. He's been fantastic.
It's been a good start to today's show as well. Stay tuned. We got a segment we're wrapping up, coming up for you. This is wrapping up something we've been doing for the past month, so it's going to be good, going to be entertaining. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. You're listening to Blue Collar Sports.